In this episode, we are going to talk about how the metaverse is going to add fuel to the fire of the virtual influencer game.
With so many different platforms,
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter,
and their purposes evolving daily, navigating social media can be, well, complicated. Welcome to the Social Media Sucks podcast from Kubbco.
Social media really sucks.
Where we unpack the latest trends and help remove the suck from social media.
Welcome to the Social Media Sucks podcast, you guys. You're tuning in for a dose of marketing and to get the scoop of what's happening in the ever-changing social media landscape. And today with me, we'll have Chris Carbonis, our beloved CEO. I have to say that. And then
is that part of the?
Yes, exactly.
Is that in your contract?
We have to say good words about you,
beloved.
And then we have our lovely lead strategist Andy Demian with us.
So you're lovely and I'm beloved.
Yeah,
And we are both in hats.
That's our name of our new band. Lovely and beloved.
lovely and beloved.
Actually, kind of.
Yeah, that's
I can
lovely.
see that fly.
Yes,
Yeah.
This is the hat episode, everybody.
Yeah.
So if you have a hat, go get it on. If you're listening, you could join us.
Yeah, you can see it on YouTube on what's special about this episode.
I actually Googled the store where you got the hats from. It's pretty cool.
It is.
It's very cool.
I don't want to give them a shout out. They have to pay me for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's
but-
very
You should
relevant.
actually get a
It's very
contract with them.
relevant. So,
No.
all right, let's
right.
in this episode discuss how the metaverse is embodying virtual influencers with avatars and how that could actually change the virtual influencer or just actually the influencer landscape, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think? What makes virtual influencers captivating and worth following?
In the first place.
Yeah.
Do you want to take that?
No, you can go.
Okay. Virtual influencers are essentially CGI characters that have been formed by agencies like us, brands, to sort of, give them a spokesperson that they can use 24/7 and they can build storylines on that, and they're not beholden to real people, right? So I guess it's a nice way of creating your own influencer. We've done it here at our agency for a brand, and it was a very exciting project, and it really opened our eyes to that whole world.
Yeah.
And what's captivating about it is essentially that you have a story, a character, like anything, like a comic book character or something that a Mickey Mouse, like it's a character that you want to follow and you know that it's fake. And I think that's what's interesting about it on the social game is that there's a bit of this sort of like, okay, this is new and exciting and unique. But on the other side, there's also like, I'm following somebody who doesn't exist. And that in itself opens up a little bit of mystery. Who's behind this? What's coming? Like, it doesn't follow the standard sort of patterns of a regular influencer. So it opens up for interesting things and interesting stories. That's why I think it's interesting to follow them.
Do you have anything to add? Otherwise, I can pop you another question.
Yeah, I mean, Chris pretty much summed it up.
Yeah.
And I think what adds more to the interestingness of it all is sort of this like almost uncanniness of how realistic these virtual influencers are by now. I think especially with Lil Michaela, they really took it far, and like the virtual influencer game is in a whole new universe, and I'm really looking forward to see how that will play out in the metaverse.
I mean,
actually,
that's the thing. Maybe we shouldn't perceive it as fake, but it's like another dimension. It's another universe. It's kind of something else you build. It's not.
it's like an expression. I
It
think.
is an expression, but there's something that I have to caution everyone about because there is this fakeness about it that is obviously triggering some, important people at Facebook, particularly when it comes to the metaverse, and also like there's also this sort of weird section of virtual influencers, which is deep fakes.
Yeah.
Where you have, for example, this guy that's not the real Tom Cruise deep faking his way to stardom on TikTok.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's this sort of like blurred lines here between, okay, but that's not the real Tom Cruise.
No. Yeah.
But people still follow
Yeah.
this person who's
Okay. Mm.
impersonating and using technology to impersonate somebody. So, even Meta or Facebook has had to like draw up some sort of policies and some guidelines as to what's going to happen with the virtual influencer game into Meta, because you get this weird thing where people start building avatars of famous people. And then it goes like, well, that's somebody's image, that's someone's creative work, essentially. How
So
can
it's
you?
like identity theft.
Yeah, it's an identity
like
theft sort of
identity
thing,
theft,
right?
actually.
Borderline,
But that's
right?
where they're trying to go with it. It's like,
Yeah.
so you have to have some of these guidelines, otherwise it goes crazy. And I think that's what's happening with the metaverse discussion right now. Is like, how are we going to regulate this sort of thing because it is literally like we were looking at getting a Rococo suit, which is essentially like a motion capture suit, and then there's also like with the AR kit within Facebook, or not, sorry, within Facebook, within Facebook as well, but within Apple is essentially like can track your face, and you've got a motion capture suit on, and you can be anybody you want. So we can literally build our own avatars, put on motion capture suits, and just produce content as anything.
Yeah.
So it's actually becoming easier and easier to create this sort of content.
It's cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, right? So for example, this guy, I forget his name, but he made his own skin, and he's basically doing his entire podcast now in a motion capture virtual reality suit where he's made himself an alien essentially, and he's doing his podcast now.
I want that.
Alien.
I want to see that.
It's crazy.
Insane.
I'll send it to you
Yeah.
afterwards. I forget what it's called, but I can pull it up very, very quickly. I know we don't have a lot of time.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's like next level stuff.
It is next level, and but it's happening, and I think this is what's interesting about this virtual influencer space, because that person will, as that character,
Yeah, go sort of viral.
will go viral, and already has, and I think there's something interesting about that, and I think that's what we're going to see more and more of. For example, he sent it to me. Where is it?
But do we
It's-
still look to these characters as like the person who is behind, or do we look at these characters as the characters themselves then?
Right.
Because I think what's different here is that like behind virtual influencers there is no real human most of the time. I mean, there is a model, I think in most cases, who sort of like models, and then they do the face.
There's
and
humans creating it. Like,
yeah, but you don't look at that as like, this influencer is run by this 4-person group.
Team.
Yeah.
no.
Not
You-
yet, at least.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe
but I
when
think
it's-
we would never. And I
I
think
don't know.
that's interesting about
I don't
it.
think of it's not ever. Like, for example, think about where we are now with Twitter, when people are like, "Oh man, the social media manager for X account
That's true.
is fire."
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of like, specifically in brand accounts, there's a lot of like pulling back the curtain a bit,
Yeah.
and even talking in the tonality of the social media manager that has to run that account.
Yeah.
So it's not even the brand's voice anymore.
It's the
It's
social
the social
manager's.
media manager's
Yeah.
voice, right? So
So you give it
there's-
a personality. anyways.
there's a lot of that going on in the social space, and,
Yeah.
and you see that's what's winning a lot as well.
I mean, have you seen the last post from KFC UK? I think I just saw it like at lunch break, so it's pretty recent. But there was like a post basically listing out 9 of the top like fast food restaurants, and then it's like you need to choose 3 that you can keep, and the rest will go away forever. And then
Okay.
which one would you pick from like all these brands? And then KFC was like, I'll pick this and this and this, and like the social manager didn't even pick KFC. So it's like it kind of came up like really funny. And now that I'm just telling it and I'm not showing it, so I hope we can somehow find it and edit it in here. Because
when you
if-
watch it.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
even when you
But
listen
that
to it.
is the sort of, that's a very nice self-aware thing, and I think brands, like, kudos for them for that. And I know we're getting a lot off topic here, but we were talking about like virtual influencers, and the people behind them
yeah.
So that
will also have a voice, I think,
Yes,
in the
that's
future,
true.
and people will think about who's behind this,
Yeah.
as well as the front character.
Yeah.
So it's not completely off topic, because it leads me to the next one, which is what values do you think virtual influencers adds to the brand, or provides a brand if they were to develop in that area?
What value, not values, like
What
we're not talking
values?
about like
What values?
honesty and like, no, we're
No,
talking
no,
about what
what
value does it
values?
add to a
Yeah.
brand? Well, I think
What
like,
the benefits?
what are the benefits of it? Like, you have an influencer that you can run 24/7. Content isn't slowing down. People want more and more content. So, and then you don't have anybody that ages. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like essentially like Tony the Tiger, or like it's somebody that, can be, it's like, Ronald McDonald, but it's in virtual
Yeah, like a
format
mascot.
yeah, it's a mascot. Like, so the mascot doesn't have to get older. You can keep them around forever. There's this, like we said, about it's being captivating. So we saw, for example, like engagement go through the roof with that virtual influencer that we had and done work for, and maybe will do in the future as well. We typically see greater engagement, greater sort of, and I also think that from a society standpoint, like one of the bad things about social media is that it sort of opened this door of feeling bad about yourself, because you could see this person who's a regular ass person, a rando, just living their high life with filters on. And what it does is it's created sort of this idea that you have to achieve.
Yeah, like comparison.
You compare yourself a lot, right? And I think the biggest benefit of virtual influencers is that we know they're fake. Therefore, the
You don't have the
comparison, you
yeah.
don't compare. So like that's one of the huge benefits for beauty industry or fashion influencers, virtual influencers, or anybody where it's like, you know, you have young people looking at the content and you don't want to influence them to compare themselves.
Yeah.
It's a great option
Yeah.
because now they're not saying, oh, I need to be exactly like
Because they
X
know it's
person.
fake from
But
the
even
get-go.
They know it's
brands-
fake. So it's like it lowers their guard and also gives them a safe space to
Yeah.
express themselves versus like feeling like bad about themselves.
Yeah, and other brands are creating this, minimizing this flawless kind of virtual influencer. They also give them imperfections and give them, you know, acne or, you know, so
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
don't, so they shouldn't be perceived as flawless. And if they do so, it's more like, as you said, it's a different dimension, right? It's
Yeah.
digital, so you don't compare yourself in the
it's,
same way.
it's one of the biggest problems that I see like in the social media game, and also it's really like that's what I like about like old school actors and television shows and stuff.
That they
like
have these like skin.
Well, because it wasn't
flaws.
like, you know, you didn't go and say, oh, I should be like Jennifer Aniston on Friends, because you know that that's an actor in a studio with makeup artists, whereas like social media really allowed everybody to like see into everyone else's lives, and then you start comparing and it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I think in general, virtual influencers just always make your brand interesting. Like it's something different than anything else. Like you will always find it like standing out from the feed, even if it's
It's a little bit
just-
of a flex.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
little bit of a flex. I think it's one of those creative activations that like most brands also look out for, because it takes at least like £5,000 to activate something like that, but it's rather around like 10,000. And I think it's just always going to make your brand relevant and interesting and cool. And then ultimately, I think the way these storylines behind most of the virtual influencers that are successful are created, though I think that's where the real juice is, because I think these storylines, for example, with Lil Michaela, are what actually make these virtual influencers come to life for real. That's when the people will really start resonating and find the influencer relatable and
Yeah, like
relevant.
she broke up with somebody.
Yes,
she got
exactly.
a dog.
Like they have
she's-
their own lives.
She's
now.
got her New Year's resolutions. Like, yeah.
It's the same. It's the same kind of stuff. Then you know when someone makes like a made-up story for their Sims or
Yeah,
whatever.
of course.
Yeah.
Or why you follow, you know, normal living influencers because they have a story you resonate
Yeah,
with.
essentially. Yeah.
So it's the exact same thing.
yeah.
Yeah, instead of being just about a brand story, which
Yeah.
is sort of sometimes boring. Like,
Yeah.
we made it to $1 trillion now. Look at us, Apple. Yay. Whereas if they had a virtual influencer, maybe maybe be a different story. It wouldn't
Yeah.
be about making $1 trillion.
I think what made it really interesting for me, at least with Lil Michaela, was that like they at one phase they made her life into like a virtual reality show, basically.
Yeah, it's like a soap opera.
Yeah, like there were multiple other virtual
Characters
influencers and
and-
characters involved, and there was a lot of stuff. And then he had a real boyfriend as well, who was actually a real model for, I don't know, Gucci or Prada or some like
I
big
don't
brand.
remember.
And like there was no clear boundaries between reality and virtual reality anymore.
Yeah, it was
was-
blurred.
Yeah.
And people just went along for the ride.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to be honest, like
It's entertaining.
yeah, it's super entertaining.
Yeah,
Like
and that's why you're on social media most of the time, right?
exactly.
Entertainment. So there you have it, guys. Thank you guys for sharing. It's that's all the questions I had, and we touched upon why virtual influencers is worth following, and that's because it's definitely a trending topic and a trend we see on the rise, and brands can tap to that to save costs. 24 hours of 24/7 of.
I don't know if they can save costs. I think that's like
on
pretty costly.
influencer fees, maybe.
Maybe,
I
yeah.
mean, of course, it takes a start, as we discussed. It takes a bigger start fee, but then you have
The rights
24/7
and
content,
flexibility.
Yeah.
and
you're
but
building a property. not just-
exactly.
not
But
just taking
where
money out.
where the brands would have most value is actually to create, you know, to really build these characters that to become influencers and personality that the audience resonate with, and that's why it's a good idea to capitalize on that if you manage to actually develop these characters and not only see it as a little
Yeah.
new trend.
And the next step is putting them into the metaverse.
Exactly. It's the work
That's
that
gonna
goes
be
into
really
it.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Please subscribe, leave your likes, feedback, comments, likes, and dislikes
Yes,
with us.
Please.
And stay tuned for the next one.
See you.
See you guys.
This has been the Social Media Sucks Podcast.